Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dr. Jason McSparron, and I'm here with Dr. Adenike Akinsemolu. Okay, and we are here for the program Time for Nature. This is a virtual symposium on World Environment Day. You are here for our first session of the afternoon. As I mentioned, this is a virtual book launch written by Dr. Adenike Akinsemolu. Okay, and the book that we're here celebrating and talking about today is called The Principles of Green and Sustainability Science. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a virtual clap for Dr. Adenike before I introduce her? Thank you very much. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, professionals, NGO workers, citizens, business representatives, government, corporate representatives, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Adenike Akinsemolu. She is a passionate environmentalist and educator, author of numerous studies in sustainability. Her passion for the environment had propelled her to start the green movement in Nigeria. As I mentioned, we're here to talk today about her most recent book titled The Principles of Green and Sustainability Science. It is the first sustainability textbook to deal exclusively with sustainability issues in Africa while offering viable solutions for the problems besetting our societies across the globe, especially the environment, especially in dealing with the environment and unemployment. Adenike holds a PhD in environmental microbiology and a postgraduate diploma in education. Let us begin. Great to see you today, Adenike. Dr. Akinsemolu, how are you today?
I'm good, Jason. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Very pleased to see you. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, great. Adenike, we have a few questions for you. My first question today is we are celebrate World Environment Day today, June 5th, 2020. And in doing so, we recognize the wealth of natural resources provided by our planet. These natural resources are consumed across our global societies. These natural resources are often referred to as the commons because they're shared resources that are not regulated by government law. Specifically, we consider things to be the commons, such as our atmosphere, which we all breathe, right? Our oceans, the rivers that run through our lands, and the fish stocks and animal stocks that we eat for sustenance, among many other things. Okay? In 1968, Garrett Hardin wrote an essay explaining the tragedy of the commons phenomena. Could you please elaborate on this concept, the tragedy of the commons, and give examples of cases? Thanks.
Thank you, Jason, for the wonderful question. Conceptually, the tragedy of commons describes a situation where individual users of a resource act independently out of selfish interest. So this behavior contradicts that of the common good users, since it depletes and spoils that resources. Examples of tragedy of commons are mining in South Africa, artisanal mining in Ghana, overgrazing among the Maasai of Kenya, and of course, the Fulani pastoralists in Nigeria. Now, the over about 50 years ago, the Fulani pastoralists, who are nomadic farmers or nomadic herders, had long lived in relatively harmony with sedentary agriculturists before the reoccurring droughts within arid and semi-arid land regions. So these droughts have resulted in desertification, which minimizes the arable land for farmers and cattle for graze. So as a result, the Fulani have migrated to Guinea savanna and tropical areas, leading to competition with other farmers. So cattle grazing on farmlands sometimes occur while managing the herd and driving cattle, leading to the destruction of crops and becoming a source of conflict, ultimately leading to loss of biodiversity. Now, overgrazing has become one of the contributing factors to the overuse of available resources alongside farming and climate change. Let's take Nigeria as an example. Nigeria implementation of the Land Use Act in 1978 allowed the state or federal government to assign and lease land and gave indigents the right to apply to and be given a certificate of occupancy, what we call COC,
Okay.
to claim ownership of their ancestral lands. This placed the pastoral Fulani in an awkward situation or awkward position because most did not apply for lands for occupancy of their grazing routes. And transhuman movement led to, and the reoccurring transhuman movement led to the enroachment on the properties of others. So the Nigerian government decided some areas as grazing routes, but this has not reduced the crash. In fact, from 1996 to 2006, which is about 10-year period, about 121 people lost their lives in Bauchi and Gombe states of Nigeria as a result of conflicts between pastoralists and farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people have been killed since 2006 in clashes between farmers and semi-nomadic herders. And about 24 hours to 36 hours ago, several reporters confirmed that suspected herdsmen had they've invaded the Sudan Doka community, that's on the Kajuri local government area of Kaduna State, killing dozens of persons in the process, mostly women and children who were hacked to death with cutlasses by the attackers. I mean, this is tragic. And if you let's go into Kenya. Look at the Maasai group in Kenya. The Maasai used to live harmoniously with nature by cherishing what we call the Enkai, which is a higher spirit. Enkai will bring about life within the savannah and ensure that grass sprouted again for the livestock to feed after dry season. Today, however, many of these stories and wisdom have disappeared and be taken over by the desire to fit in and adapt the modern life in quote. So overpopulation of the Maasai has made land sparse, while hunger has almost become more frequent. So the lack of knowledge over resource conservation has contributed to overgrazing that harms water resources and the land, and has partly contributed to the destruction of the wilderness. Now, a report by the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, in 2016, outlines that people are using more natural resources than the planet can produce. And this ultimately will lead to biodiversity loss. Certain flora and fauna are becoming scarce resources and could become extinct unless, of course, we intervene and change our behavior. So the examples of the tragedy of commons, such as the mining in South Africa or the artificial mining in Ghana, have contributed significantly to the contamination of soil or water bodies through the release of heavy metals such as arsenic, lead into our water bodies, and also soil erosion and land degradation, deforestation, and diverted waterways.
Mm-hmm.
These have several deleterious effects for the ecosystem as well as the environment on which humans, plants, animals, and of course microorganisms thrive. They depend on this, and this is where the concept of going green could be propitious. So in the chapter 1 of my book, I talk about 5 principles of going green, and the first one is reduction of pollution,
Mm-hmm.
conservation of resources,
Mm-hmm.
conservation of energy, reduction of waste, and the protection of ecological balance of the earth. Now, if these principles, if they are applied judiciously or they are applied astutely, it is crucial for avoiding tragedy of tragedy of the commons. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good answer. Thank you very much. We appreciate your explanation of the tragedy of the commons being natural resources that are used by the public. These aren't generally they aren't generally mandated or regulated by the government, and as a result, there's sometimes imbalances of who gets access and who gets use. So those are some very interesting examples. overgrazing in mining sectors as well. These are issues that we need to think about and address in a multi-stakeholder manner. Yes, very interesting. I have a second question for you if you've got the time. People are split. Sure. People are split. Some are optimistic while others are pessimistic about the concerted global effort to transition away from hydrocarbon fuels like oil and natural gas to renewable energy sources such as wind power, solar power, or hydroelectric. Furthermore, reliable electricity is the backbone of any productive modern economy. It contributes also to the well-being of communities. Now, here's my question. Given the insufficient state of electricity distribution across the African continent, can you tell us your insights about the way renewable energy production is trending in across regions of Africa? Thanks.
Thank you for that. That's a fantastic question. Before we talk about Africa, globally, the world produced approximately about 5.9 tetrawatt hours of modern renewable energy in 2016. And this, of course, represents a 5 to 6 fold increase since 1960. And Africa is rich in renewable energy sources. You're talking about hydro, sun, wind, geothermal, and others. Moreover, when we look at the coronavirus and the recent oil price crash, it is just another reminder to all of us, not just Africa, that we need to strive to diversify our energy sources as rapidly as possible. Of course, renewable energy is going to suffer in the short term, but this oil price crash may well serve as a turning point for the clean energy transition. Now, back to Africa. Africa's leading economies are increasingly looking to renewable energy sources, providing a large proportion of its future growth. This will be economically viable. It will unlock economies of scale and would provide substantial benefits through local value creation, equitable development, energy security, and environmental sustainability. South Africa, if you take South Africa as an example, South Africa is the continent's most advanced economy and is a clear leader in renewable energy policy and projects. So, for example, South Africa will drive for wind power installation with an additional 3.3 gigawatts added to its energy capacity by 2024. Kenya is also doing well. Kenya is also a major leader and recently they opened the African largest wind farm last year and is on course to soon be able to claim 100% renewable energy from a range of sources, which includes geothermal and solar. So investments in clean energy in sub-Saharan Africa jumped to 7.5 billion in 2018 from 2.3 billion in 2017. And so Nigeria is, well, let's go back to Nigeria. Nigeria is only able to provide or to supply power to half of its population of 198 million. And currently Nigeria generates a small amount of energy from renewable sources, which is kind of sad because our geographical location is near the equator. So Nigeria has the potential to generate most of its energy through solar, and that's if it's harnessed properly. So most of the big cities in Nigeria, we're talking about Lagos, Abuja, Benin City, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Kano, they now power their street lighting with solar energy through state beautification projects. In fact, World Bank has lent Nigeria about 350 million to build a solar power grid by 2023, and this will generate power for hospitals, rural areas, schools, and households. Wind turbine generation is also developing, is another developing energy source in Nigeria. Wind speed in Nigeria typically ranges from 2.2 to about 9.5 meters per second. With such low wind speed, investments, well, might not be too good when you compare with solar. However, wind power will also be advantageous to rural and agricultural communities. In the southeast of Nigeria, wind power has a potential higher than 4 meters per second, and in the north, the wind can get up to 6 meters per second at a 10 up height. So Nigeria as a country has secured financial support from the Chinese lenders to start construction on their hydroelectric plants in Mambila. Mambila is located near Baru in Taraba State, Nigeria.
Okay.
So this idea to create this project was originally proposed. Now, just listen to this. This idea was proposed in 1972, and is finally ready to be put into action over 45 years later. 45 years later. So Chinese lenders are providing 85% of the total $5.8 billion project, and Nigerian government will provide the rest of the funding. With this project, it is expected that we can add an additional 3,050 megawatts in 5 years. So, and the project is expected to build about 4 dams that will measure up to 50 meters in width and 150 meters in height. So, when Africa as a continent, I would say we have the potentials out there because we have everything. We have solar, we have wind, we have adequate resources. Now the question is the right policies need to be put in place, and not just putting the policies in place, but also implementing. Because it's one thing to put in policies, another thing to implement it. So, and the government of especially Nigeria needs to stop playing politics when it comes to sustainable development. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Great answer. Nigeria is a leader on the continent. It's really good to hear, especially since Nigeria is very often considered a petro state where most of its government revenue comes in through the oil and natural gas sectors. So it's really good to see that Nigeria is taking a leadership role in diversifying, making the investments into things like hydroelectric power and other forms of renewable energies, as you mentioned. So that's fantastic. And from what I understand, similar projects are happening across the continent where people are looking more at wind and solar, hydroelectric.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the trend is kind of moving in the right direction.
Yes.
At this point. Yeah. Okay. We have one more question here. Okay. Let's see. Finding solutions that address problems related to the tragedy of the commons and the tradition of renewable energy generation is a multi-stakeholder endeavor. The state must work with business, firms, and civil society organizations to develop sustainable solutions. Now, from your perspective, what sustainability capacities need to be prioritized and strengthened to improve governance and promote sustainable political economy? What should be done by communities, community leaders, and coalition agencies across the sectors, civil society, government, and corporations? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that's a fantastic question, Jason. The government is understandably focusing on the present crisis, but they must eat to the dangers in reacting to threats. And remember that one of the gravest threats in the world right now is climate emergency, not just COVID-19. And implementing an ambitious green package with clear paths for businesses and organizations to build aligned strategies and for investors to direct capital into green projects at scale is now a matter of necessity. It's no longer a matter of choice. So the government can also promote the utilization of best practices, including the recycling of e-waste, recycling of e-equipment, the development of complex systems for renewable energy development, reduction of toxic contaminants in the use of material, and encouraging the use of certain fuels other than hydrocarbon. Rwanda in Africa is among the countries that have developed measures to ensure that eco-friendly practices are embedded in government and government activities. And what is going on in Rwanda right now is inspiring. As a country, they support private and public environmental projects. There's something called the Rwanda Rain Fund. It's called the FUNEWA. It's the largest of its kind in Africa. It's the groundbreaking investment fund focused on environment and climate change. So essentially, it supports public and private projects that champion a green economy and have the potential for transformative change. So I think we can learn from Rwanda. And so far, it has committed investment just under $40 million to 35 projects. And interestingly, has created about 137,500 green jobs and has reduced equivalent of about 18,500 tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And that's just in 2012. So imagine what's the endless possibilities. In Rwanda, for instance, they They over a decade ago, Rwanda imposed an outright ban on all single-use plastic bags. And a lot of people said, "Oh, this is ambitious. This is not possible." But
Right.
in Rwanda, not only can you not use plastic, travelers are not allowed to bring them into the country. In fact, it is illegal to import, to produce, use, or sell them at all. And this is impressive considering that the UK only implemented a plastic bag charge in 2015.
Sure.
Rather than using plastic carrier bags, businesses need to start using paper alternatives. And which these are things that are already going on in Rwanda. And by doing this, you can reduce water pollution, you can reduce soil erosion, animal deaths, and all these things can be reduced. And these are noticeable benefits when you go to Kigali, because the country is clean. There you don't find like roadside rubbish or plastic bag hanging from tree in sight. So Rwanda working towards banning plastic entirely, that's what they're doing, and that's the goal. And the vision of the president of Rwanda is to achieve a low carbon and climate resilient economy by 2050. So President Kagame has a firm stance on sustainability, and I feel we should, most African countries should learn for that, because that will help us in maintaining a clean and healthy environment. So Rwanda is doing so well. And I'm using Rwanda as an example because I feel like these are people that they're already doing it already. And the goal of Rwanda is to become the world's first plastic-free nation. Hopefully, they will be able to achieve such aims. And so the government is really big on sustainability. So in building the sustainable economy, the roles of the government, now back to the government, entails funding of basic science, like funding in STEM, especially for renewable energy and technology, using tax systems for steering capital towards investment in sustainable technologies and businesses, investing in infrastructure and minimization of ecosystem destruction. Those are things that government need to put in place. The governments also have a role to play in implementing climate action. So let's talk about communities now. Community leaders need to come up with climate action network meetings in their community. Not that they've not been doing this before, but everyone should be now. All hands has to be on deck. Everyone should be able to suggest and conduct projects, ideas, and initiatives that can address climate change. Everybody needs to be able to start action at home and the local level, and to form and this will form cohesion in the process and build confidence in group vision. There's a quote that says that one is too small a number to achieve greatness. So if you're using the Green Institute as an example, the Green Institute is located in one of the rural areas of Nigeria, Ondo, and all the program you're seeing right now is being broadcasted from this community. Mm-hmm. So it is about it's the willingness of the people to act. It's the willingness of the people to inspire change. It's the willingness of the people. It takes the willingness of the people to inspire greatness, not just but to everyone. So a lot of projects that we do at the Green Institute, they're not funded. It just takes passion. It takes the willingness. It takes for us to know that nature is something that we do not joke with, because we cannot exist without nature. So let's even take away from governments or community leaders. Individuals have a lot of roles to play in their various communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akinsemolu. I tell you, that was a very interesting answer. Very, very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, truthfully. What I want to say is, just what you have said in the end, just a quick summary. Okay, you have given us some examples from across the continent, looking at sustainability and some of the challenges that people in the African continent are facing in terms of the tragedy of commons. You mentioned overgrazing by the Maasai in Kenya. You talked about mining in South Africa and elsewhere, Ghana and elsewhere across the continent. So you are in identifying these problems in these tragedies of the commons. Okay, you are also calling to action in encouraging those who are already taking steps from government, from corporations and civil society to kind of harmonize our modern life, okay, with our natural environment as we go forward, trying to achieve the sustainable development goals across the continent and across the world. It's important for us to think about sustainability. And that's why before we go, I just want to encourage people to take a look at Dr. Adenike Akinsemolu's new book. It's called The Principles of Green and Sustainable Science. Okay, this book uses the concept of sustainability in science to address problems afflicting the environment and to devise measures for improving economies, societies, behaviors, and people. This is a fantastic textbook for people at many different levels of education, and it's also a great textbook for people who are working on these issues, whether you represent the government, corporations, civil society, or just just a citizen who is interested in learning more about the principles of green and sustainability science. Adenike, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, I just want to say that we, like, with the current pandemic that is going on in the world right now, it's just it doesn't compare to the tolls of what would happen if there is environmental collapse, and that we need to simply go green by adopting attitudes, activities that can protect the environment and resources, especially for not just for ourselves, but for future generation. And it's almost too late. So the time to start is now.
Right. And I think that's one of the themes in your book. While you're dealing with science, hard science and in data throughout the book, you really do bring it home so that individuals, families, and communities really can assess their own personal relationship with the environment and with the products that humans are using that may be harmful to the environment. Things, again, the overuse of plastic. You mentioned about Rwanda's efforts to limit plastic bags and to eventually become a no plastic society. These are great aspirations. And throughout your book, you have great examples of individuals, communities, governments, and other entities really striving to meet these goals. And really, I look at you in this book as you as a leader, and this book as a very good guide for, again, individuals, societies, corporations, and governments to begin to assess our relationship with the environment and our modern society and figure out ways to, again, work on sustainable development that is going to improve the lives of people today without minimizing the livelihoods and the quality of life in the future. I really appreciate talking.
Jason.
Thank you very much, Adenike. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope to do this again some other time.